It's official.
It's official. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with the Mayor. Today we have a very special guest here today, Mr. Bruce McGregor.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna read a little bit of a background about this young man and we'll go ahead and get started. Bruce McGregor grew up in a small dairy farming community in upstate New York. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Physics from St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, just 20 miles from the Canadian border. He then pursued civil engineering at Washington University in St. Louis, where he earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees. Bruce moved to Olivet in 1996 and has called it home ever since. He began serving the city in January of 2009 and has the public works, he is our public works administrator. Bruce and his wife Veronica, a native of Peru, have been married for 28 years. They have two sons, Alex and Sebastian. So he spent a lot of time near Canada. I think that's why he's so nice. So, you know.
That's a good insight.
Yeah, that's why he's so nice. And to see you, 28 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually our anniversary is Friday.
Wow, wow.
So,
See, me and my wife had 28 years. I've been under contract with the same woman for 28 years.
well, I'll tell you, we've had 3 weddings.
3 weddings.
Yes, we did a civil wedding in November, and then we did a church wedding in Peru in May, and then we did a church wedding in St. Louis in October.
Oh.
So this is our third 28th on Friday.
So did you guys meet in Peru or?
Well, I had a good friend at engineering school who was from Peru, and he had a party one evening and invited me along, and my wife was here doing an observership at Barnes and arrived with another fellow Peruvian, and that was that. We met at the party and we commuted for 3 years while she did her internship and residency in New York City. So she came from Peru to St. Louis to New York. I came from New York to St. Louis, and then we flew back and forth.
Wow.
And then she came back here for her subspecialty fellowship.
Okay. And my wife went out with me as a favor.
Oh, yeah. Well, you are a good salesman, my friend.
You did as a
She said
favor.
it's still a favor?
Like I said, she's under contract now. She ain't going anywhere. So
The receipt is filed in the
Yeah.
family safe and you lost the combination.
28 years of a life sentence. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. Okay, so we're gonna have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Can you start by giving us an overview of the Public Works Department?
Okay. Pretty much, we operate sort of in the background. And I think our saying in the public works field is, if you don't know we're there, that's a good thing. So if everything's running smoothly, whether that's coordination with utilities or sidewalks or streets or our tree inventory, any of those things should sort of just be operating smoothly and you don't even think about it during the day. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. You know, one of the greatest challenges in the public works field right now is, you know, we have an aging staff. Within the next 4 years, we'll probably have 3 or 4 folks retire from the public works department. And we don't have a lot of young folks coming in. And I think everybody's heard that trend in the United States as, you know, youngsters are pushed into college and not, you know, not offered, or maybe it was accepted to go into a trade field. You know, we now have an incredible shortage in people who are working in HVAC, plumbing, and electrical contractors, and the same things with public works. So, you know, that's probably the biggest challenge right now. While we are at full staff, we have a budget allocation for seasonal help as well, and we just can't find people to come in and supplement, and that's a real challenge for us. So, you know, as I said, we really don't want to be known, right? You just want things to operate smoothly, but you know, there is a challenge. If we had unlimited resources, every pavement would be perfect, every sidewalk would be perfect, but the reality is we're shooting for, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're shooting for a solid 6, you know. It works, we're getting there, we're on a plan, but you know, if we wanted to bring all of our assets up to a perfect 10, we'd need the entire city budget to do that, and that's just not a reality.
So you're not getting all the funding you need. That's our fault then.
No, but I don't think anybody in public service
say
gets
that
up.
in jest.
Okay, well, just to be fair, the council does an exceptional job working through the budget process and has many hard decisions to make, right? You have to look at all these really good opportunities and you just can't do it all. So, that's why we try to prioritize and be strategic in our expenditure requests.
What would you say is the most, I guess, the thing that you guys do most in your department? What takes up most of your resources?
So as a small department, one of the things that our staff really enjoys is that we could be doing concrete work, doing sidewalks, 1 week. We could be doing some tree management another week, asphalt repairs another week, and working at the city center or one of the other buildings doing some sort of a maintenance repair. So they enjoy the variety of being able to do different projects each week. Now, sometimes I bounce them around maybe a little too much and they get frustrated because as soon as you figure out that plumbing repair, you get pulled back to, doing some asphalt work or something else. But it's probably the biggest thing we do are asphalt repairs. So if you looked at our expenditures over the year, the biggest item would probably be, asphalt coming out. That's bread and butter, fixing, potholes or pavement depressions or just areas of deterioration.
Okay, all right. We're coming up on the fall leaf collection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have to book my therapist appointment.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, how should residents prepare for these leaves for pickup? What should they be doing?
Sure. So we always ask, I know a lot of folks, don't want to have a service rake out their leaves. They only want to do it once, right? So they say, all right, we're going to wait for the week before the last collection. And that is, can be a challenging time of year for the weather. So one of the best things we can do is work your leaves out before each of the passes. We offer 4 passes, right? Now, the challenge also is the weather. This year, we've had exceptional drought. It was 85 degrees yesterday. We don't know when the leaves are going to drop. So of course, that's beyond our control. We've had similar problems other years where we get a very early heavy frost before the leaves have actually decided to go dormant and fall, and then the leaves stick on the limbs. They don't drop as you would normally expect them. But that is the best thing is to plan and get your leaves out as each pass comes. Also, review the guide. If you have a contractor coming in, please don't rake the leaves all the way out into the street. Okay, that's just not polite for neighbors and vehicles. And one of the saddest reports we hear around the country are leaves are what we would call an attractive nuisance. Kids like to play in them, build a fort, and you really don't want that story of a kid playing in a leaf pile and a truck veering over or something and somebody getting hurt. And then also, if you do get out, we get windy days, just help us by maintaining the piles. A lot of residents or a portion of residents have sidewalks in front. It's very hard to maintain those piles if you have a big lot, especially on a narrow strip. I'm looking at you, Susan. You have a hard time to balance that out with the retaining wall and the small tree lawn. It's just a challenge. And anything you can do to help maintain those is much appreciated.
Okay, so the preferred method, if I'm understanding this correctly, is right along the edge of the yard, not in the street, but along the yard.
If you have a street without a sidewalk, if you can just sort of hover right over the curb, it's okay to go a foot or two into the street and keep a couple feet on the yard. That's sort of the preferred pile, still accessible from the vacuum because the truck has a limited space by the hose. But I have pictures of contractors have come in and said, okay, well, I'm going to get it all off the lawn. And they've got a pile 8 or 9 foot into the street, across the whole front of the property. And then we have vehicles having to navigate around those. So, a nice long pile centered up over the curb is perfect. No sticks, no wire, no, any things that can get jammed into the impeller of the vacuum. That's a big hassle when they break down.
How often do they pick up, like, for example, I've got a lot of dead wood. What's an appropriate size to cut this wood and when will that be collected?
So yard waste is once a week on Wednesdays. In the collection guide, we have a scale for the wood. I think up to about 3 inches can go into your container, but also just be mindful that somebody has to pick that up, right? We have trouble in the spring where people have a container on wheels and they just dump all that wet, heavy grass in there and it weighs about 150 pounds and the operators just can't lift those into the truck. So if you're putting in wood or other dense debris, you fill it up a quarter of a way. Extra branches can be bound with twine, not wire, and bundled so it's easy for them to pick up. And then if you have some small pieces, I think 6 inches and above, I'd say between 12 and 16 inches long, those could be placed out as well for pickup. Bigger than that, maybe that 6 to 8, 10 inch range, that's getting into, you really need a service to come and collect those. You couldn't cut down, say you had a tall tree in your backyard and get all those pieces out. That's not really what weekly yard waste collection is for.
Okay, and remind us again of how often the leaves are being picked up.
We have 4 passes, schedules on the website. We have some printouts here. First week of November is the first pass. And as always with the process, watch the weather. If we get 3 rain days in a row, expect to be delayed. Hendel's been doing our collection for as long as I've been here and longer. And this is his business, their business, throughout the community. So if they were scheduled to be in New City or Front or wherever ahead of time, it's a domino effect. The delay pushes everything back. But they do work weekends and into the evening, trying to catch up when required. Sure.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned before being concerning why there's pieces of wood, etc. That was the reason for that. We have this year, well, it seemed like last year, an abundance of acorns. I'm not talking a few, I'm talking just a lot.
Okay.
Is that an issue?
Well, I don't know how well the vacuum picks up really small things. My recommendation with the acorns is raking them up and just putting them in a regular yard waste container. Again, being mindful of weight in there. And it's difficult, folks who have the sweet gums, sweet gum trees were in fashion in the 60s, 50s because they have a very dense canopy and grow fast. So before air conditioning was prevalent in the houses, they would plant those on the south side, trying to get shade on the house. And it was effective, but boy, talk about a nuisance. The sweet gums are really a hazard for everybody in there. So that's a similar one where I think it's just better to rake it up, bag it, or put it in containers. Good question. Also, folks have, if you've noticed the oak trees around, pin oaks were also a very popular tree to plant in St. Louis. It's a non-native species from Texas. And 1950s, 60s, 40s, and so on. It was another fast-growing oak tree. It was relatively strong for the fast-growing size, but it is susceptible to a wasp that is in the Midwest that injects the larvae into the twigs, and the larvae actually grows off of the nutrients in the tree, and it chokes out the twig at the end of the branch so that it doesn't get the sap to the limbs. And you'll see those falling down all over the place too. That's another one that's good to rake up and just get into into a container or a bag for weekly collection. They're really rather medieval looking spiked balls at the end of the limbs, and it's really decimating our tree canopy and all of that.
So after fall comes winter. Can you talk a little bit about the winter operations and snow removal?
So actually, earlier this week, we had our fall winter salt delivery. So we had 400 tons of road salt delivered. We are available 24/7. One of the benefits of living in town is my wife teases me that I'm the pavement whisperer because I'm out walking around in the middle of the night, trying to talk to the ground. Are you going to freeze or not freeze? And, when do we call the staff in and begin operations? Each event is different. right? We have to decide, do we try to do a pre-salting application when we think there's a chance of freezing rain? We'd rather get some salt on the road ahead of time because it's really difficult for trucks to operate on ice. Even if it's a great big heavy truck, ice is the great equalizer. It just doesn't matter what you're driving unless you have like chains or studded tires. And then, the biggest thing residents can do is be patient. If you see the snow in the forecast, have your cars moved off the street, give us our room to work so that we can maneuver the snow around. And then, of course, if you see the trucks out, don't crowd the trucks. It's very, a lot of things when you're operating, you have to watch. You've got to watch your spreader, your auger speed and your plow and all the other controls in the truck. And one thing just to ask too, we have a lot of winter enthusiasts. It always amazes me how many dog walkers we see at 2 a.m. If you're out and about, wear reflective clothing or one of those illuminated headbands or shoulder straps. It's very, very hard, when you're plowing to adjust. So the further we can see somebody in the road or along the way, the more time we have to turn the plow blade, to move the truck more into the middle of the road. It'd be very sad to have an issue with somebody.
So at the city center, we get so many calls about Olive Boulevard. Can you talk about who's responsible for Olive and what roads Olivet is responsible for?
So in the whole street inventory for the city, we have St. Louis County does Dealman Road from Olive all the way to our northern border. MoDOT has Olive Boulevard all the way from University City and the city of St. Louis out to Highway 40. And they do the maintenance on there. They're working on the project now, and cross our fingers, we will have the mill and fill and new pavement by the end of the month. And they're experiencing the same challenges that public agencies are, staff. So you'll see they are frequently interviewed on the news, and they say we have 150 routes and 100 drivers to fill those routes. So they're actually bringing in office staff and training them on operations, getting the appropriate CDL license to put more people in the trucks. So it is it's a staffing shortage. But the best way to go is to do if you have a concern online at or call 888-ASK-MoDOT. But if you also just type in Google MoDOT report a concern.
Who is responsible for traffic lights on Olive?
MoDOT is. So MoDOT has the whole lighting control, like I said, all the way from 40 down into University City. They have fiber that's interconnected and can, from the automation or control center at Woodlake Manor, that's at 40, Clarkson and Highway 40, they can actually watch the cameras and make adjustments. Most of the time they can do it from that office. Sometimes they have to send out a field.
Is it the same 1-800-ASK-MoDOT?
888-ASK-MoDOT or report a concern online. When you do it online, you can actually put in a signal issue for that selection. Yes.
Does the MoDOT control include the easements and sidewalks along Olive?
Yes, the entire right of way.
That's the whole reason I'm skipped.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
So how many private streets are there in Olivet?
I would say that about 80% of the streets in Olivet, or boy, I had this statistic and I don't remember exactly, but I would say 2/3 to 80% are city streets and the balance are private. So that was going to be the other two. We have private subdivisions and then the city streets.
So I happen to live on a court that has 5 homes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a private street, so we don't get any street maintenance,
Mhm.
any of that sort of stuff. And I'm curious how that comes about or why the city doesn't take over those streets. Because we're paying the same taxes
Mhm.
as everybody else,
I know council is investigating that now.
okay?
Just from a historical point of view, depending on the age of the subdivision, what typically happens is a developer has an option to build a street to a standard specification and then dedicate it to the city. For instance, we had a subdivision go in at Old Bottom Road in Dealman. And they built to our specifications for dedication to the city. It's possible that when your subdivision was constructed, the developer chose not to do that. They chose to construct what's called a non-compliant street without curbs and gutters, without stormwater management, without sufficient pavement base, okay? In 1999, 98, that era, council did a neighborhood improvement district project and offered acceptance of all streets to all residents in Olivet. And that includes where I lived in Olivet at the time, which we remained a private subdivision. So there was an opportunity to do that. The way that worked was it follows a Missouri state statute for neighborhood improvement districts, and there's a number of different ways to do implementation of that process. And council is investigating that now. If it is a non-compliant street, meaning that the construction was not to standard, you have to do a core sample. If it doesn't have curbs and gutters, all of that would have to be constructed to become accepted by the city. Okay, and then those expenses could be assessed to the property owners for a period of 10 years. Another option is to use the NID process to fund all the repairs to take the street up to current standard, and then it still remains a private street. There's no obligation on the city to accept a street that is being requested to take over for public inventory. We have, as it sits right now, about 50 lane miles of city inventory. So if you can imagine getting on I-170 and driving 50 minutes, that one lane is what we maintain through the year, and it is a challenge. So adding more to our inventory, it will require additional staffing for us and additional budgets for the years. So they are actively discussing that process now and what to do.
So when will the decision on those?
I wouldn't expect anything before second quarter 2026. I think, of all the things on the council agenda, that's just one of them. So I think they'll be discussing it through the fall and spring or winter.
Will you all be reaching out to those people affected by, that are private?
I suspect they will. I'm not on the council and I don't do that. But I would expect that once they come through a consensus on what is attainable, then they will reach out to all private subdivisions and say, this is what we have on the table and this is how we can help.
Okay. Thank you.
There is more information about winter weather under the Public Works Department on the website. There's a whole section with more policies and things to follow, as well as the fall leaf collection. In the newsletter, we had a little section about rainscaping and storm management. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, just like we're having exceptional drought now, we have periods of exceptional rain. And staying away from the politics behind all that, it's just a fact. Our community was built in a time when we didn't have larger houses, right? We didn't have these periods of high intensity rain. So the infrastructure that was placed is not big enough to support, right? Our stormwater pipes are just not as big. And nor do you build. You don't really build for that 100% rain. It's just not attainable, right? We'd have enormous pipes and the cost would just be exceptional. So what we look to do is try to handle that. The more we can do on the granular level, right on our parcels, to slow down that water is a benefit to the entire community. So and also if you're an active gardener, you can save a little bit of money too by capturing some of that runoff water into barrels, or they actually have water pillows that you could put under a deck or somewhere that absorb that water that you can use for irrigation in the garden. Carlos and the Planning Community Development Department have done a really nice job outlining what needs to be done on a parcel or on a property for redevelopment, for a remodel, and some best practices, starting with on the smallest sense, a rain barrel. All the way up to full-size rain gardens, bioretention, and underground detention of water, so it's dispersed at a slow level. We're currently working with a engineering specialist, developing a stormwater master plan for the entire community. We expect to have that ready probably by middle end of first quarter 2026. And that'll give us a more holistic understanding of all the rain implications, water implications throughout the community.
When did that plan that Carlos, when did that come out?
Ooh, got 5, 6 years, I think. Dawn, do you remember when that?
So, sorry, which plan?
Oh, so when we did the stormwater requirements for redevelopment,
Oh, those are part of our building, requirements for new single family and significant, additions of like greater than, 1,000. Our,
was it before you started? Was that in place? Do you recall?
it had to have been.
Yeah, because I remember Jonathan was working on that. So time flies. It's been over 5 years, I think.
Sorry, Scott says 18 or
18.
19,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm curious, just because we added an extra lane to the driveway.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know that stormwater was, you know.
It might have been
plan was-
below the threshold for a requirement, depending on how much you add. But that is directly impervious, right? Whatever hits that concrete is going straight to the street and into the stormwater system. So those are examples of what we're trying to capture. The new home requirement is they have to have detention to hold, I believe it's 1 hour of rain at a specific rate underground at a controlled release. Okay, so the entire roof area is going into holding, slowed down, and then released over time.
And the significant difference would be that it's not pushing the water all to the street, that each site has to be self-containing and or account for the water that's being diverted into the system.
We have, in our roadway projects, in our, like the Great Rivers Greenway project, we build in stormwater retention into those as well. The city center, we have native plantings around the perimeter. I don't know what the exact species is, but that is designed for, low impact, right? You're not mowing it every week. It gets maintained twice a year. And then we have bioretention basins. So stormwater goes into those, they build up and collect, and then they have a slow release. And then we have permeable pavers. So the bricks that are in front of the city center, underneath is a gradated levels of gravel. And in the voids in between the gravel, that all holds water. And again, it goes out at a controlled rate. So we're trying to capture and slow everything down. Oh, my goodness. Yes, Beverly.
I just share, we have some really large bioretention basins here that you can see right out the window here behind us. There's a brand new huge one at Indian Meadow that's very significant. And then you've probably all seen the one at Stacy that fills up regularly. So those are all mechanisms that we use with new construction to capture that water as best as we can. And we periodically have tours. You could go on walking tours of that and learn how to care for them, how to install them. We recently had one with Great Rivers Greenway, so keep an eye out for those in the city newsletter.
Botanical Garden Sustainability Center is a great resource for all things native and things you can do at your own house. Whether it's all the way to pollinators, right? If you're looking for bees and everything for how you're planting your garden. Yes.
I forgot to say also that the Botanical Garden and Deer Creek Alliance, Watershed Alliance, also offer grants for rainscaping and stormwater retention. They periodically will include parts of all of that, so sign up for their notices, go to their website. They aren't always for all of it, but sometimes they are, and that's a tremendous way to fund that underground.
So Olivet is split into 2 watersheds. So the south of Old Bonham goes towards Ladue, and it's Denny and Pebble Creek. And that goes ultimately into the Deer Creek watershed. North part of Olivet is in the River Des Peres watershed. We have a couple forks that come out of Olivet. The biggest one, which is the original one and only River Des Peres headwaters, which is right here north of that detention basin. Stormwater collection starts in Creve Coeur and unincorporated industrial park underground, and then it becomes daylighted right here. Goes all the way over into University City and meets up with a couple of tributaries from Olivet near where the Deerbergs is going in University City. On October 25th, we are having a stream team event to clean up a segment of the River Des Peres on North Price Road near Arrowhead Park subdivision and the industrial park. We did a cleanup there several years ago. Not a huge area of trash collection because there aren't a lot of adjacent properties, but it is a pretty little walk and it's a nice time to get out and do your part for the stream environment. Okay, questions? Yes.
So who would be the right department or who would?
All things Carlos.
I know. He's my first go-to, but in terms of stormwater, and this also could relate to Don, what you were saying, my property, as everyone knows, is lower than the street and the neighbors. And, we're having issues, particularly in my backyard, where a new build on Bon Price Lane and then others adjacent to my property dump their water into the back of my property. And we end up with severe ponding of 3 feet of water at least. The same is similar to the house that's to the north of my house. And legally, the distance between our homes is within the statute, but their property is 4 feet higher. So we have direct runoff damage to my property from that. So I don't know who can address those stormwater issues, whether it's your department or Carlos and Don and.
So it's probably in the top 5 requests we get from residents, maybe in the top 3, it's stormwater concerns. Runoff from the neighbor's yard or somebody changed something and now I get flooded. It is maybe the top 2. I don't know, Dawn, you might know, but I know it's way up there in the number of calls. I know we've talked about it before. I know Carlos is aware of it. Generally, I deal with most things on the holistic approach in the right of ways, but it's probably, I think it'd be a good candidate to try to apply for an MSD grant. And if there's a way I can help you with that, there are, I think maybe 6 to 10 contractors that are approved to do work with the Rainscaping Rain Grants program. Chances are one of them might be, or might have had a project, similar to the conditions on your site, and
I think that the properties around should be participants in what is happening to my property.
Yeah, I don't think our ordinances can do that if they're already built, right? The houses go back quite a long time and.
That was the rebuild on,
Lane. So, well, we can, I can meet with you. Yeah, sure, but this is a specific thing. We can set a meeting with Carlos and me and we can brainstorm some ideas. We do have a consultant, like I said, that's doing the master plan. And maybe we can ask them to dig in a little bit into the topography around your property. Okay, another question? Yes.
Can you explain how the water billow works?
It's just a great big diaphragm. So some people don't have room for large barrels of water. And I've just seen them where people have crawl spaces under their house or under their deck. And it's imagine an enormous pillowcase made out of rubber. And the stormwater drains go right into it and it fills up. And then there's an outfeed, to a garden hose that you can use.
Okay.
So,
And where you.
I've seen it on the Rainscaping program, on the MSD program, that people in the city who don't have a lot of space, but they had large porches, were putting these under their porch to collect water. So there's tons of, my goodness, if you go to stormwater or rain recovery on Google, I'm sure you will dive in and lose half a week in threads and blogs about how to conserve water on your site. Yes.
Does the mitigation include adding patios, hard surface patios?
It's by square foot of impervious.
With swimming pools?
All of those things are considered. So anything that is affecting impervious area, that is area that does not absorb water, becomes part of the calculation.
All right, it's popular. Okay, so. The Trash Bash, is with our Parks and Rec Department and Open Space STL.
Mhm.
It will be on October 25th from 9 AM to 11 PM. Volunteers are needed, so go on the website. There's a waiver to fill out and a chance to register.
Mhm.
So our final question, at least for me, so we had, Republic Services come in the summer to talk about, trash and recycling. They also do the large bulk collection. When is the next one and what kind of items can be collected and how
Sure.
can we prepare for that?
So just stepping back a minute to recycling. That was a good, I was here for that, Coffee with the Mayor, that was a good discussion about recycling. The one thing I would impress upon everybody is the first R is reduce. Okay, so whenever you're out and you're shopping, try to make a conscious decision. Do I need 50 things individually wrapped with plastic? Do I need, these things bundled in such a way? Is there a better way to buy bulk for my household supplies than having all these, buying lots of little plastic bottles? On top of that, the more and more we learn about plastics and microplastics and PFAS and all of those things, it's not good for us, right? So, educate yourselves and, try to make the decisions that are the most responsible. Then thinking about reuse as much as possible, and finally, recycle. The commodity market in recycling is challenging. It sounds easy, but it is actually incredibly complex. When you look at glass, right, you think, oh, that's easy, you just melt it down. Well, there's only so many places that melt it down. There's a small community, third degree glass, they'll reduce it, but it's by nowhere have the capacity to pick up what goes in the recycling stream. They are looking at glass to recycle, crush, and put back into concrete. If you've ever looked into lead and carbon footprints, Portland cement has an incredible footprint behind it. So they are working very hard in the industry at ways to minimize or to lower that footprint, and using glass, which was what sand originated as in concrete, is up and coming, but they're not quite there yet. So again, look to reduce and finally recycle. And then Joel mentioned that we are a community that has historically had a low contamination rate, meaning we don't meet the threshold where a whole recycling truck just goes in the trash, because it's more hassle to collect all the stuff that doesn't belong out of it. To always understand and be mindful of what's going on, or what's going into your recycling container at home. This is all, the whole environmental side of things are absolutely fascinating, but our first thing is our knee-jerk reaction is to do everything. But as a community, we have an obligation to do what's best for the community and most financially responsible. So we want to make decisions that are environmentally correct, but also have a return on investment, right? Because we don't have unlimited funds. We do look to leverage whenever possible any grant opportunities that are out there. I think I have at least 5 different grant projects going on right now. So we do try to leverage every opportunity to get, federal funds or reallocation funds from utilities, but it's not enough to subsidize everything. So, those decisions are difficult, but, they have to be made. Bulk collection. That is a great resource to the community. We do it I think it's the 3rd full week of April every year. Great time to clean out of the house. It's not the time to remodel your house. Okay. So, we're really looking at things that go into the house once the construction is done. Okay. So if you have a chair, I don't know, that elliptical that's been in the basement or treadmill, and you hang all your laundry on it, those sort of things. If you have a rug that you would roll up, that's fine, but don't do wall-to-wall carpet. you know, when you redo, decide to change to a part of the floor or something like that. So, just not designed for it. And again, with that too, be patient. We never know what's gonna go out. So sometimes they run a little bit behind, collecting the large items. Also, it's a good idea to look at what's coming out of your house and is it good for the Habitat for Humanity restore? Or a freebie for somebody else to reuse on a marketplace or one of those, websites.
Buy nothing.
Yeah.
Buy nothing.
Mhm.
On Facebook, and there's all different groups.
Again, another deep dive into the internet that you'll lose an evening, but whatever we can do to reuse and keep things out of the trash stream is great.
Thanks, Bruce. Do we have any final questions? Leslie?
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is about Price Road in general. And what is the status of I know it's last in the list of grants.
Yeah, so we have 4 road reconstruction. Streets are classified, it's called the functional class, okay? And for federal grants that are given up by Federal Highway and then managed by our Metropolitan Planning Organization, East West Gateway, we only have 3 in Olivet that are urban collectors, okay? That is Old Bonham Road that we did in 2014, Dealman Road that we did in 2 phases right around COVID. We actually did Dealman Road North in 2020. That was right in the middle. I remember we opened bids in March of 2020 virtually in the council chambers. It was a very peculiar time. Last year, we applied for a grant to do North Price Road from Old Bonham to Dealman. The project was not awarded or was not approved by East West Gateway. So we're going to do that again this year. Unfortunately, they don't give us really any good reasons other than there's 150 projects. We can fund 80 of them. We do try to hedge a little bit by keeping our projects smaller, thinking that, it's easier to fill a gap and distribute to more communities, which is why we only did 1 segment of North Price Road. Didn't help, but we're going to try again. Applications are due in January. We will reapply. And then to actually get through the process, it's about 4 years. So you do preliminary engineering, and then we plan for 2 years of right-of-way. The platted width of Price Road is 40 feet. Modern roadway designs really need 50 feet. We can squeeze 2 5-foot sidewalks, a 2-foot tree lawn, and a 26-foot pavement in the 40 feet, but we need anywhere between 1 foot to 1.5 feet or 2 of what we call temporary construction easement along every property owner. Okay, so that means we need to talk with everybody, follow the Uniform Act, which is federal guidelines of how to negotiate with landowners, and acquire easements, have them recorded, and it is a very long process to go through. In some cases, if a resident doesn't want to negotiate, doesn't want the sidewalk, doesn't want this in front of their house, we can narrow and essentially engineer them out of the project, but that is not our best practice. We want to amicably work with all residents. So that's what we're looking at for North Price. If this project is awarded this year, then next year we'll apply for the north segment, and then we'll have a ladder for the project.
And will it include hard curbs, similar to what's on?
Yes, we'll put vertical curbs in and 5-foot sidewalks. That is our game plan. Type S curb. Another big project we have going on that I'm very excited about is we have a cost share grant with MoDOT to do intersection improvements at Price Road by CVS and Dealman Industrial, which was by that old US Bank office building that's now vacant. That's a $1.6 million project that we are getting funds back from MoDOT on. And we have a lot of activity north of Olive in the industrial park and in the northeast quadrant Arrowhead Park. So very excited about that. That small building that was the CBD shop will be torn down sometime in November, early December. That was a non-compliant structure. on the roadway and has been a safety hazard for years. Without the partnership with MoDOT for the funding, we would not have been able to do that in-house with city funds. So the grant projects are wonderful, but they're very cumbersome process to go through. You have to be certified as a local public agency representative and go through a lot of training, and there's oversight from the engineering policy guide for MoDOT that we have to follow for oversight.
Anyone else? All right, thank you so much, Bruce, for.
Nobody wants to learn about innovations in asphalt or concrete?
Now,
Dawn does. Okay, no. All right, so asphalt emulsion, since you asked, we're here. So if you look at I'll go into it. Yes.
Yesterday, when there was a geyser,
Mhm.
in Indian Meadows. And, we used the tool Siren GPS to notify those folks who were affected, so can you give a plug for Siren GPS? and how
Yeah.
we-
Absolutely. So, you know, engagement and communication with our community, right? That's a challenge. The application we use for important notifications is Siren GPS. If you go to our website, you can look it up. I can't remember which page it's on, but probably if you just search Siren GPS, you sign up for it and you can select how you want to receive notifications. They can be to your text messages, emails, and there's actually a Siren GPS app. The challenge with the app is with recent updates to Apple and Android, location services are frequently turned off. So if you want to use that app effectively, you have to make sure that your settings are correct so that it knows where you are. But you can push one button on your phone and go straight to emergency dispatch. Okay, so we encourage everybody to please sign up for that. When we do have a utility problem or a roadway project, that's one of the ways that we try to push communications about schedules or, you know, impacts to your specific street. The beauty of the app is it allows us to put a geofence around a specific neighborhood so that we're not alerting the entire community that there's a boil order in place. Then everybody panics and calls. It's only for a specific area, or where to look for updates as to when water or electricity or something might be restored. And just stepping back to winter operations, over the past few years, we've had significant power outages. Have a plan at home, right, of what you're going to do if we have a bad ice storm and you lose power for a day or two. Where are you going to go? How are you going to keep your phones charged? How are you going to do heat? What's going on? So just do a little bit of home planning. FEMA has some really great guides of how to do emergency preparedness.
thank you, Bruce. Bruce has such a small, and I mean small, but mighty team, and they work really long and hard hours during the winter. So they manage a lot, they do a lot. So we're really lucky to have them here in the city.
The guys actually sleep at Public Works with kitchen showers and bunk rooms. So it's not uncommon for them to come in Friday morning and not leave until Monday. It is such a stressful, it's hard enough to drive to work in a snowstorm. The last thing I want are our operators driving in, white knuckled to get here, and then have to get in a truck already stressed out. So a lot of times we stage our workers at Public Works so they can at least get some rest and then get up at 4 a.m., go out and treat the streets before rush hour traffic starts in the morning.
Where is Public Works?
North of CBS. It's in an architecturally significant 1973 DME block building. I like to think of it as mid-century modern. So we're coming back in vogue.
Our next coffee with the mayor will be, it's always the second Wednesday of the month. It will be Turkey Trot. And I think it's the November 10th, 9th or 10th, 12th. We will have a member from our Turkey Trot team and someone from the Jewish Family Services coming. Upcoming events, the fire department is having a carving pumpkin night, October 17th, I think 5:30. So bring your pumpkin and they'll have tools and hamburgers and hot dogs. Harvest Fest is October 24th. Beverly, am I correct? 5th?
25th.
Yes.
Saturday.
Saturday for the kiddies.
Here.
Here. Anything else I'm missing?
The E-Shred.
E-Shred,
That's October.
October
Monday.
20th,
Monday,
Monday,
here.
3 to 6.
Yeah.
5 Oaks parking lot. All right, thank you guys for coming.
Okay, I have a question. Okay. The old Monsanto campus, now Bayer campus, in the newsletter, it mentioned, I know it's Creve Coeur, but they mentioned adjacent to Stacy Park. 90 of the 151 acres on that east campus for Bayer. Do you have any idea what that's gonna be repurposed for?
Carlos?
I think,